제 전부 쏟던 힘이 정도는 모놈 전부 남겼다 아그러다는 전도 실물도 또 나도 제잖아 기좀 사람의 저러 증이 장근서 저거 특기 선로 열라면 이제 본조장로 소란
The supreme, profound, and sublime Dharma is difficult to encounter in a billion eons. Now I see it, hear it, receive it, and kept it. I vow to attain the true meaning of the Tathagata. In order to liberate all sentient beings, let us generate the supreme bodhicitta.
Well, let's continue with our class on A Journey to the West. Currently, we are talking about Phuntsog Rinpoche's teaching at Rocky Mountain. And over here, I particularly wrote about a Westerner's attitude toward time. Every Dharma center in the U.S. is very good at time management. They often make explicit schedules for things to be done within the time duration, from as short as several minutes or hours to as long as several years. Every time we arrived at a center and settled in, we would receive a detailed schedule so that we knew what we were going to do. Well, they would make plans for Dharma assemblies and to make plans for years to come. And sometimes, if they were going to host a Dharma assembly or a retreat for 7 days, they would then make a detailed schedule for each of those 7 days. And for each of those 7 days, they would make a schedule for each of those hours, what to do. And sometimes they would even make plans for how long it's going to take, how many minutes from one center to another place, and the time duration of each sessions, and so on and so forth. That was the first time I witnessed such a kind of attitude or such kind of plan for time. So that was quite new for me. At that time, when we arrived at the center, then we would receive a schedule, an itinerary for the days to come, and then in each rooms we would receive those timetables. And whatever kinds of changes that may come, they would inform us ahead of time, instead of things that may happen and then the participants may not get informed. So I think there's something that's very virtuous about it. The Dharma teachers over here, I really hope that you would cherish people's time, your students' time, because time is something that is more precious than anything. Time is more precious than gold, because gold you can obtain it at any time, but time, once it's gone, you won't be able to get it back. So you need to have a very good sense of time. That is why I wrote about the Westerners' attitude toward time. They're very prompt. I also noticed that no matter what the occasion, Westerners do have a good sense of time and attach great importance to punctuality. For instance, the time for each lecture given by Rinpoche was scheduled for 2 hours, including the time for chanting before and after the teaching, as well as the English translation. Well, if the lecture was scheduled for 2 hours, then the venue is sometimes paid for only 2 hours and maybe 5 minutes after that. And then people have to also pay for the meters for parking. If the lecture is for 2 hours, they would pay for 2 hours and 5 minutes for the meter. And then I remember that at Los Angeles, there was a student who raised hand and told Rinpoche that, may I please excuse myself because I have to pay for the meter. And then Phuntsog Rinpoche was rather quite confused and wasn't sure what was going on. Why was the student ask him whether he could leave? If a lecture did not finish after 2 hours, some listeners would raise their hands and remind Pansur Rinpoche that the time was up and they had to go. Otherwise, they would be in some trouble, such as paying additional parking fee and so on. If a 4-hour session was completed, even 5 minutes earlier, Rinpoche would be requested to still teach something else until 2 hours had passed because they paid for a 2-hour lecture. They feel that the time is not completely up yet, and they paid for a full 2-hour lecture. But Dharma is not something that you buy for. That is, of course, in our understanding. But for those Westerners, that's how they would value the lectures in certain ways. I think there's some value in this kind of value of time, because you can plan ahead and think about how many people can give speeches in a convention and in a meeting, and then you can pre-estimate the amount of time that you need for lectures, for meetings. Mipa Rinpoche once said that there are people who just squander their life without having any plan for their life at all. So when it comes to time, we need to have plans and we need to know what we are going to do, especially when it comes to the management team, when it comes to the people who host meetings and so on, so that our meetings could be quite effective. Even if it's 5 minutes and 10 minutes and so on, you need to make preparation for it, you need to make plans for it. After people get old, they tend to get rather quite talkative, and they like to nag on and on. Some of the Dharma teachers who tend to get too nagging and who tend to talk too much, you really need to refrain from talking too much. After I mentioned that in class, I still heard that some Dharma teachers still talk too long in their class. And sometimes I think maybe they don't listen to my class, maybe they don't know. But then I thought to myself, maybe I should implement some kind of procedures or implement some kind of rules so that they would at least refrain themselves from talking too much, because you need to cherish and value other people's time. You don't want to waste other people's time and life. When I encounter authorities who host too long of meetings, if they go on and on, it is rather very irritating. So when it comes to having meetings and having different kinds of discussions, you have to finish on time. It would be good to have punctuality, because punctuality really shows the character of a person. There was a particular time when Ijinur was conferring the Chesenintik empowerment, and because of the ritual was too long to be completed within 2 hours, and sincerely apologized to the audience for running over time and kindly asked for their permission to extend the time for a half hour, since the empowerment couldn't be interrupted. This is the empowerment that happens, and you will see it in the fourth stop. Though we didn't find the audio for it, but I did write down the content for it from the notes. At the beginning, Choji and all of us were not used to strict attitude about time in the West. In the Tibetan regions, after all, a Dharma teaching can be quite free in style. It depends on the teacher how long a teaching session will take. If the teacher elaborates on content in a great detail, he or she may teach several hours without a break, but it is not possible for a session to be finished within a short time if the teacher doesn't feel like talking too much. And the teachers in Tibet, usually, if they can elaborate for a long time in detail, the teacher is considered as someone who's quite eloquent and a very good teacher. So the teaching in the East can be very uncertain. However, people in the West are serious about keeping their schedules neither longer nor shorter than the expected time duration. And in the West, it is considered that to keep the time under the expected duration is a sense of respect. Actually, it is not just in the West, in Japan. For those of you who visited Japan before, if a student who tend to get late all the time, then the fellow students and teachers would not respect that person. So when I inquired about why they were so strict about timekeeping, I was told that being punctual is a sign of respect for others in the Western culture. And if one is often behind schedule, it indicates that that person may not be reliable. Punctuality is particularly important on formal occasions. Otherwise, it may cause others many inconveniences. Since everyone's daily schedule has been properly arranged in advance, if there is a delay at one event, all the subsequent activities may be affected. Therefore, people in the West follow their schedules strictly. So whenever I am traveling outside and people tend to remind me, why don't you take a break? And I would tell them, well, if I were to take a break, then my later schedules will get delayed. So how people treat time really is a sign of reliability. Also, it indicates how many things that people can do at a time. There are people who tend to get late to catch the train and get late to attend classes and so on. It really shows a sense of unreliable quality of that person. As goes saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, Rinpoche quickly adapted to the Western culture. Whether he was given teachings or conferring empowerments, he would use his wristwatch to remind himself to finish on time. So from the photo, you can see that he's looking at time. When Phuntsok Rinpoche finally arrived at France and the center of Sogyo Rinpoche told him that you can teach as long or as short as you wish. There is no time constraint, and that's when he was. So Phuntsok Rinpoche felt very relaxed when he was in France. Speaking of the ability of working with time, there is there's a Chinese blogger who posts a full 60 seconds audio recording every single day for years. Every single day he would post that full 60 seconds of speech, not 1 second less nor longer than that. So I think it really shows a sign of the capacity of working with time. From then on, I also became a person with a strong sense of time. I myself really feel that I have a very strong sense of time than the others. Other than some very special occasions, I'm very punctual. Let it be attending classes or to have meals or to have meetings or so on and so forth. I'm very punctual. I'm never behind schedule. Now the next part is reasons for opening the door to the Profound Dharma. At the Rocky Mountain Dharma Center, Yijin Norwo gave tantric teachings to the practitioners there for 7 days. On July 1st, he bestowed the Peaceful Manjushri empowerment. Before getting started, Gyatso Rinpoche shared a few words with the audience. First of all, I would like to extend a hearty and warm welcome to all of you here, especially those who come all the way from somewhere else to attend this Dharma activity. Having such a wonderful gathering is a result of our accumulating merit and purifying obscurations throughout countless aeons in the past. So we should highly value such precious Dharma activities. It is especially fortunate for us to be able to receive teachings from such a genuine realized being as His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, a true emanation of Guru Padmasambhava in this age. Because Phuntsok Rinpoche being a turtle, so he is also seen, or you can also see him as the emanation of Guru Padmasambhava. He has the power to grant liberation to those who see him, listen to him, and touch him. Well, nowadays, Khenpo Ishi is giving the teachings on the extensive biography of Phuntsok Rinpoche. Also, we are going to celebrate the 20th Parinirvana anniversary of Phuntsok Rinpoche. It is rather very special. This year is really special, so we need to, with all kinds of ways, such as studying the biography of Phuntsok Rinpoche, such as thinking about Phuntsok Rinpoche, to remember his teachings and so on, to be connected to him. When we think about it, the fact that Phuntsok Rinpoche has passed away for 20 years, yet Narangar here is still prosperous. We're still here studying, we're still practicing according to his instructions. Even after 20 years of his passing, we are still gathered here, which is quite rare when we look at the various kinds of centers around the world. So the best way of remembering him is to think about him, is to study his biographies and to look at his, to read his teachings. This is really the best way to commemorate him and to receive his blessings. Other than that, to receive some kinds of little souvenir and to receive some kinds of little plaques and things like that is not as important at all, because in the worldly sense, in secular world, when people attend some meetings and then they would receive a little souvenir to remember that convention or that meeting. But for us, for the Dharma practitioners, what we're doing is that we're receiving the Dharma teachings through various ways. This is the best way to be connected to him. Many of you didn't have the opportunity to meet Phuntsok Rinpoche in person, but to receive teachings like such, you should visualize that you're receiving it from him directly, because the teaching is exactly from him. So this is the best way to be connected. Now, being connected with such a great being through this activity, we will be able to recognize our Buddha nature that is primordially within us, not to mention to gain benefit, peace, and happiness in all lifetimes. Our mind is like a mirror, and being able to see Khenpo Jigme Phuntsok is the result of our great merit that makes the mirror clear, so that the compassionate reflection of Rinpoche appears. Although you see the reflection vividly, you may not know who you are seeing. This is really well said, because Phuntsok Rinpoche is the reflection of our faith. People without faith may not know him, may not know that fact. So over here, he continued to say that, therefore, I'm here to introduce you to this great being, but my brief introduction could be like the blind leading the blind. Because Phuntsok Rinpoche is the reflection of our mind. So how you see him, it is really important. to understand that the way that you see him is the reflection of your own mind and your own merit. So the reflection from your mirror is very much based on your merit. There was a story of how a disciple complained to Master Guanchen saying that, well, I think there's something wrong with the kitchen because every time I come here I couldn't get a hot meal. And then Master Guanchen said that this is really because of your lack of merit. So over here, Rinpoche Khenpo just reminded everyone that how we perceive Phuntsuk Rinpoche was simply based on our own merit. And then he continued to say that although we have enough merit to be able to see him, it is important that we should not waste our merit by overworking him because he's advanced in age and tired from his busy schedule and travels. Besides, he also needs to preserve his energy to meet thousands of sentient beings and to bless them, so we should check often to see whether he needs more rest. Instead of watching our watches too much, here Khenpo just reminded everyone that the sense of time should not be over practiced over here. We should care more about our future life. Please be aware of Choji's physical health is the most important thing. Your ticket cannot buy his priceless teaching. It is not that you paid for the teaching or paid for the service of teaching. In the West, because of different practical reasons, in the West, the Dharma teachings usually will charge a price. So later in Boulder, I believe there's another article, another story I wrote to explain this. Although in this country people have to buy tickets to attend the Dharma teachings, it doesn't mean that we should treat Rinpoche's teaching as a service we deserve. It is very inappropriate to treat a Dharma teaching like a business deal with the expectation that it has to produce profits. Instead, we should keep in mind that this is a golden opportunity for us to accumulate merit and an invaluable chance that it can hardly be encountered again in our life. I'd better not to say too much. I'm getting nervous because Guru Rinpoche himself is sitting there waiting to start his teaching. I'll just stop here. Now, Gyatso Rinpoche, while he was speaking, everyone was laughing and reacting to his speech. And then Gyatso Rinpoche then noticed that Phuntsuk Rinpoche was looking at his wristwatch. So he got quite nervous. He said that, since Guru Rinpoche himself is sitting there and waiting to start his teaching, I'd better stop here. Whenever I think about this, it is so vivid right in front of my eyes. Now, before conferring the empowerment, Phuntsuk Rinpoche spoke about the 3 reasons why he decided to confer the empowerment instructions of Peaceful Manjushri at the center. Today, on this occasion, endowed with perfect auspiciousness, the time has come to open the door to the profound tantric teachings. In general, since the empowerment and instructions of Peaceful Manjushri belong to the teaching with sealed transmitted precepts, they're only accessible to recipients who have passed certain qualifications. In other words, for both a teacher to give the teaching to the disciple and for the disciple to receive the teachings, there must be an extended time of observation. The teacher must examine the disciples for years, and the same goes for disciples before the transmission of such precious teachings. However, this time I have decided to directly confer the profound empowerment and instructions to each of you. Mainly, I have 3 good reasons for this. Now, we will look at the 3 reasons. The first is that under the kind guidance of your Guru, all of you have started with the practice of shamatha meditation and are following the complete path to enlightenment by engaging in the stage-by-stage practice instead of rushing into profound Vajrayana practices without any preliminary practices. You first accomplish the common path and then move on to the uncommon path. path. This is the authentic way to practice the Dharma. And I joyfully rejoice your Guru's compassionate and skillful guidance bestowed upon all of you. Therefore, I have decided to give you the empowerment that can ripen your mind streams and the instructions that enable you to reach liberation. Well, those disciples at this center, in fact, practiced shamatha for a long period of time, and some engaged in retreats. I'm not so sure about how long they practiced Nungjo, but in traditional Kagyu teachings, one should practice Nungjo vigorously first as well. And then the second reason is that you and I are meeting together through ripening force of our aspiration in past lifetimes, and there is an excellent karmic connection between us. Considering this, I'm eager to review this sacred teaching to you. And how can I say that we enjoy an excellent karmic connection from past lifetimes? Because when I was teaching the Dharma to thousands of monastic disciples and hundreds of thousands of lay disciples during the Dharma assembly, the letter of invitation to travel to the US came to me, and they were written by a great number of Tibetan masters who were from the same hometown or of the same lineage as me. The moment I received these letters, I felt an ineffable sense of joy. I recognized that this was a sign of my karmic connection with you. From your side, such a sign was also obvious. Why is it? Your centers have been very careful about inviting guest lamas to give teachings, but as I was told, when hearing my name and reading a bit about me, you not only had an overwhelming sense of joy. When now it seems that my eyes are getting quite my eyesight are getting quite blurry. Maybe I shouldn't blame it on my eyeglasses, but maybe just truly my sights are getting blurry. Anyhow, but also indeed made a tremendous amount of effort to issue invitations to bring me here from a distant country in the east. All of this shows that we have very good connections from past lives. So I'm more than happy to offer this teaching to you. The third reason is that ever since your guru came to US in the 1970s, he spent over a decade working to build the structures necessary to provide his disciple with thorough systematic training in the Dharma. Although his direct Dharma activity that occurred while he was alive have dissolved into the vast expanse of Dhammadhatu, did he not provide opportunities for those who protected and assisted in his activities, such as me, to strengthen the Dharma connections with the disciples? Of course, he did so. Thinking about this, I would like to give you this profound empowerment and instructions. With these three reasons in mind, I will first give you the empowerment that matures your being. Please consider, in order to place all sentient beings equal to limitless space in the state of Buddhahood, you aspire to receive this profound empowerment and carry through all instructions in your practice. Please adjust your motivation like this. In 1987, I traveled with tens of thousands of Tibetan disciples, as well as many Han Chinese and Mongols, to Mount Wutai. We repeatedly made aspirations in accordance with the great vows of Shamathabhadra in front of Lord Manjushri. One time, with the blessing of Manjushri's wisdom mind, this ritual of a peaceful Manjushri empowerment spontaneously rose in my expanse of awareness. This is exactly the Dharma you will receive from me on today's occasion. While the empowerment is not transcribed here, in our next class, we will study the flight of the Garuda. I think it would be the best for you to receive the empowerment. It is not too much of the information. Let's see if some Khenpo can give you the transmission of it. We'll see. So let's stop here today.
Kirgana Chiranon Turbai, Trapum Sonen, Drova, Drovara,